If you like this video, please rate, comment, share and subscribe. If you dislike it, please tell me why so I can improve. I'm going to talk about this notorious book, The Transsexual Empire by Janice Raymond. This book has been accused of transphobia, and I think probably now I do look at it as transphobic, but at the time I read it, I didn't think of it in that way at all. In fact, I found it quite enlightening. Now, I'd like to point out, first of all, that Janice Raymond is a very sympathetic person. She cares, she's a wonderful campaigner for women's stuff, and this whole book is actually written in a very sympathetic manner, I think, most of it, as far as I can remember. The only trouble is, I haven't actually read it in quite a long time, and I'm quite daunted by the prospect of reading it because of, well, what I remember of it. But it is really sympathetic, and it does try to offer an alternative. It isn't just a case of it slagging transgender people off. It's much more sophisticated than that. But basically its claim is that the desire of men to change sex is indulged in by the psychiatric profession and others in order to police gender boundaries, and is in fact a form of rape of women, because it's an invasion of their space and it enables men to pretend to be female when in fact they're not. And that is something I really took on board and internalised when I was a teenager and a young man. And the practical result of that was that I hung on to my genitals. And not literally, well, sometimes. And the practical result of that was that I got married. I don't agree with marriage, but I got married anyway, and I've been happily married for 20 years, and had 2 children. And those 2 children are the most wonderful thing that has ever happened to me by a long, long stretch. And whereas sperm banks are possible and that kind of thing, I seriously don't think that any of that would have happened if I had had gender reassignment surgery. And I did think about it in quite a lot of detail, but I didn't do it. So I have her to some extent to thank for that, and that is quite good. It is quite a daunting prospect. She does make some good points. If you can cope with it, I would suggest you do read it, even if you hate the transphobia that many people see in this book. It is quite a daunting thing to do. But it's not hateful at all. And I think it does make some good points about things like male body language used by transgender people, and well, just a whole load of things really. It does, one thing it's definitely wrong about though is autogynephilia, which is, there is this idea, or has been this idea in psychiatry, that men who want to be women are in fact sexually aroused by the idea of becoming women. Now, there are men who are sexually aroused by the idea of becoming women. I can't speak for anybody else. I'm not sure that's a good reason not to do it, although it seems to be a self-defeating thing, possibly, depending on how well I understand what's involved. But I can, like my previous video about why I don't wear women's clothes, because I do have a couple of quite strong paraphilias myself, I'm able to compare my desire to be female with my desire to do the other things which are not mentioned on this channel, and they really are very different. It's just not the same. How do I sort of explain it? I don't find it sexually exciting, the idea of being female. I just find it a sort of form of correction between my perception and a way of and reality, and a way of sort of removing something that I consider to be a problem with my body. The other things, because they're fairly masochistic, they would be more a question of imposing a problem on my body, a way of getting pleasure from pain. So they aren't the same thing at all. I also think that she claims that that women are only XX, people born as XX chromosomes. Now, that is clearly not the case because of androgen insensitivity syndrome. Those people are obviously women. They self-identify as women. They are hardly ever gender dysphoric, and yet they are XY in their genotype, and therefore definitely chromosomally male, but clearly very obviously female. And so I think that's just a factual error, and I wonder whether this is quite anachronistic. Certain people who are gender dysphoric might actually be undergoing an intersex condition because of chimerism. That clearly doesn't apply to all of them, and it doesn't mean that other people who are gender dysphoric shouldn't have the right to regard themselves as of the wrong gender. So I do think you should read this. I think you have to be careful, because I think it probably did contribute quite a lot to my self-hatred and self-loathing, but I did get something positive out of that. I just think she's wrong. I am going to get around to reading this at some point, but right now I haven't read it for quite a long time. But I don't think it's worthwhile. But she is wrong. But that doesn't make her a horrible person. She's actually a fantastic person, and as far as I can tell. So that's all I wanted to say. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll do a science video probably. Bye.